The past haunts us all, whether it be a person, place, or thing. We are reluctant to let go. We call to the dead out of desperation and intrigue, searching for answers about what lies behind the shadows. We are paranormal researchers. We are Necromancers. Hello, and welcome to the Necromancer Live Show. I'm your host, Justin Brown, and we're presenting episode 67 with Annie Weible. It's going to be super awesome tonight. I was on her show, I think last month, a few weeks back sometime. It's all blurry to me now, but we're going to switch chairs, and we're going to interview her tonight. We're going to get to know her a little bit more, and we're just going to do a little bit of cross promotion. But before we do that, we're going to say what's up to the girls real quick. Ladies, are you ready to get the show on the road?
Yes.
Missy, are you ready?
Yes.
I'm just making sure. I have to make sure on every show, okay? Because I just don't know. All right, so if you're new to this show and you haven't watched it before, this is how it works. We're going to interview Annie. We're going to have a great time. Missy and Jessica are going to keep an eye on the comments. They're going to interact with you. If you have any questions, we're going to read them off to Annie periodically through the show, so please be patient. Feel free to share this live stream. Feel free to check out the links right now that we have in the description of the video. And let's get the show on the road. Let's introduce Annie. She is a radio show host and a paranormal investigator. During the last 18 years, Annie has been discovering the spiritual realm through various methods of scientific and spiritual experiments. Weebs has joined forces with Resident Undead and hosts RUWeebs Radio Live, and also has a podcast called Serial Spirits, which I love the name, by the way, where she infuses murder, true crime, and hauntings all in one show. So, without further ado, we have Annie Weible. What's going on, girl?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. What's up? How are ya?
I'm here and I'm ready to talk about all the things that you like to talk about. But before we do that, we need to get to know you. I want you to go all the way back. I want you to go all the way back to what you first experienced that got you into this whole mess called the paranormal. What was it that just flipped the script for you?
So anyone who's known me since I was a kid knows that I was a creep. Always the weird kid. Was always the first kid at the slumber party to break out a scary story. I don't know how many times my childhood best friend and I tried to talk to Elvis through seances, like in her bedroom and her front yard, just the typical creepy kid stuff. And so it's always something that's been ingrained in me. I didn't really understand why until a little later in life. I come from a very religious background. Both of my grandfathers were very spiritual, but also very kind of superstitious people. And anyone who's ever been to this part of the South, the Bible Belt, Appalachia, West Virginia, knows that this is an area where everything that has to do with that is taboo. And so I remember my maternal grandfather telling me stories about his grandmother, my great-grandmother Josephine, and told me that in her day and time, in the tiny little town that they lived in, they were what people called witches. And, they claimed to have some type of ability. My grandfather would, tell me stories that my grandmother didn't really want told. And so over the course of, my teenage years, it became ingrained in me and something that I loved. I was 17 when I had my first experience, right after the death of my paternal grandfather. And it escalated from there. With all four of my grandparents, their passings, I had experiences either before or after they passed. I began to noticed things, that I thought were probably not coincidences. And so after the passing of my maternal grandfather, the one who really kind of ingrained that spirituality in me, I joined up with a local team in Huntington and learned a lot about just basic paranormal investigating, ran a lot of cables, set a lot of cameras, all that jazz. Got a little experience under my belt. Like most teams do, they kind of disperse, formed my own team here. The bad thing about being a paranormal investigator in Appalachia is that it's not well received. And so we kind of ran out of local places to investigate. And so about a year and a half ago, I met Adam Kimmel, and they were looking for some help with Resident Undead, and he asked me to be a part of that. And it's just been a whirlwind ever since.
How did you run into Adam?
Adam and I originally, I contacted him on Facebook. It's been a couple of years ago. The team that I was with at the time wanted to investigate Madison Seminary. And so he had like one weekend open. It was Father's Day weekend in June. And I said, whatever it takes to get us up there, we would love to do it. And his proposition to me was, I'll let you come to Madison with your team if you'll be on an episode of Resident Undead. And I was like, okay, that seems like a fair trade. And so before I could even come up and investigate Madison, he kind of started talking a little more about RU to me. And it just was a relationship that developed from there.
Interesting. So it's needless to say, he saw something that he liked within you and saw the potential that you had on his paranormal work.
I don't know what the hell he saw. He never did really tell me any of it. But yeah, he and Becca Kirschbaum had actually been in my neck of the woods, looking at a location that is now, part of it has been sold off. Part of it has been destroyed, in an effort to kind of save it. A place called Morris Memorial Hospital that was an old polio hospital about 15 minutes from Huntington. And they had been down there. And I remember seeing them post that. And I was like, my God, I would love to get to know these people. And I guess it was karma or kismet, because within just a few months we were talking on Facebook, and the rest is history.
Nice. That's really cool. And I'll tell you what, I think Resident Undead is someone I've always followed and watched. It's really, really entertaining to watch their stuff. And I really appreciate what Adam does. He has a genuine passion for historical places, trying to correlate history with the paranormal and getting people on board with saving places and people who are paranormal enthusiasts or enjoy that type of thing, and just tying a bow around it with the history of the places. The nostalgia really resonates with him, and that's what I like about him the most. Plus, he's charismatic guy and everything, and he puts together good videos. So it's super awesome to see you on there, and I cannot wait to see what you all do in the future episodes.
We've only released 2 episodes that I've been a part of, and we shot both of those. It's been more than a year ago, I guess now. St. Joseph Hospital was the first that I shot with Resident Undead. St. Joseph is an old hospital right outside of Cleveland. That was my first shoot. And of course, they chose to bring in Michelle Belanger at the same time. And so as someone who had watched paranormal shows for years, being a part of something that Michelle was a part of has just, every time I talk with her, it's mind blowing. Michelle is just an amazing human. And so this most recent episode that Kimmel released was the episode that we shot at Monroe House, which is an interesting, I don't even know what to call that place. It doesn't feel like a house. It doesn't feel like, to me, part of that place feels alive. and I don't really know what it is. And I would have to go back there to figure that one out. So Kimmel absolutely has a passion for it. He has created this band of people at Madison Seminary who have, these people step together and, volunteer their time and their work and their effort. And in the time that I've known him, the things that they have been able to do at Madison are just absolutely amazing. The place would be gone if it wasn't for this group of people.
Yeah, I definitely like to take a chunk out of the show and talk about what you observed through that process of, all the trials and tribulations of getting that up to code so he could share it with the public. But back to the Monroe house. So I believe, and I was brought up to believe, that some houses are alive. They have consciousnesses. And the reason that is because we give them consciousness. The people who live there, the people who, imprint their part of their consciousness onto the homes. And that's a unique and interesting aspect of the paranormal that a lot of people don't delve into. But metaphysicists, psychics, empaths, they pick up on it. And sometimes it comes across a little awkward when they try to tell people about those things. And upstairs in that little closet where they have the little dolls set up, there's a closet there. And the walkthrough with my mother, she felt part of the house hiding out in there. And she said that was strange.
Okay, so are you talking about the room when you go up the stairs, the bathroom is on the right, and then you go back to that back room and there's a little hidden... I don't think this part made it into the episode, but I remember walking in there for the first time with Kimmel, and I think Dave Wooliver was with us also. And seeing out of the corner of your eye, just kind of that flicker of something. And I remember saying to him, there's something hiding in there. And so it's odd that other people, you hear about the correlations of these people who go through and have these similar accounts. That house is alive. It does have its own consciousness. I think it's a compilation of all of the energy that has passed through there over the years. And, there's so much of the history there that they've never been able to solidify. And it feels to me like the house itself is hiding something.
Absolutely. We may never know all the secrets, but I think we can try to brush away some of the lore, some of the urban legend, and try to appreciate and objectify what is actually going on there. And I think as long as they let in good paranormal researchers and metaphysicists in there, they're going to see things, cross-check and correlate, and they're going to get to the bottom of what's going on. Before we go to the chat and get some shout-outs and questions for you, what's the most mysterious thing is there remains in the crawl space? The local police say it's inconclusive. They found animal bones. But if you look on Paranormal Lockdown, they're bringing these huge bones for people to analyze, and they're telling everybody watching the show that they're human remains. So that's weird to me.
It's very strange. And like you said, I don't know that we will ever be able to solidify everything that's happened there. Anybody who's from a small town knows about small town cover-ups. And so if somebody was there and they wanted everyone else to not know what happened there, it could have been covered up very easily. And some of this feels that way to me, was that it was just easier to cover it up and let it go. Let it lie with history.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. All right. Let's go to the chat. Let's do some shout outs. And if there's any questions, let's hear them.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. I have Derek Schreiner. I have Becky Compton. I have Bill Davis, Heather Elliott, Christy Brown. I think she's bouncing back and forth. Matt Benton, Sandy Griffiths, I think I said that. Craig Williams, Heather Elliott. They're just commenting. Brendan Shea, he said, "Oh, hey, Annie, gosh, she is a good-looking gal."
Oh, my Shay. Hello, darling.
Murphy.
What a fucking creepy stalker.
He so is.
Oh, wait till I bring up that freaking screenshot from the TNT bunkers. Remember the one I posted? We're going to see that tonight again. Any questions there on Facebook?
No, Matt said he now has a theory about one part of the Monroe house that he needs to talk to you about.
Alrighty. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us there on Facebook. Like I said, share this live stream to all your friends. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people who are interested. Even if they don't see it live, they can see it in post. So, YouTube, what's going on over there?
Okay, we have Greg Williams, Sam, Joe, Penis Ventali, Scotty, Raw Uncut, Paranormal. Justin, I'm being professional here.
Sorry.
Raw Uncut Paranormal is actually El Salvador from Facebook, Val and Josh Bender.
All right.
Sam actually had a question. Annie, what was your most spiritual memories?
My most spiritual memories would be probably with my family. Like I said, growing up in a very religious family where when you're talking about paranormal stuff, it's taboo and everybody is very kind of superstitious. A lot of Southern Baptist church growing up. But I think there are different levels of spirituality. And as I've grown, just as a person, as an investigator, as someone who has, a little bit of a sensitivity to the unknown, my most spiritual time as of late has been just the time that I'm by myself, meditating, focusing on certain things, whether it's loved ones, whether it's just relaxation methods. To me, that's a different level of spirituality. It's not just about church and religion. It's about finding your own inner peace.
Okay.
Wow.
Roland Uncut, he wanted to know, do you believe in psychic seeing and speaking to the dead?
I do. I think the term psychic is used way too loosely. And Michelle has talked about this on investigations as well. Michelle hates the word psychic. And so there are different levels of what people are able to do. Some are able to hear, some are able to see, some, relay through dreams, automatic writing. And so I think the term psychic is just kind of a mashup of all of this. I do believe that people have the ability to interact with energies that were here at some point. Do I think people have the ability to talk with spirits? I don't know. It depends on what your definition of a spirit is. But are we able to interact with energies that were once present and are not anymore? Yes, I believe we do.
Okay. Sam wants to know, do you have your own aspect when you hunt or based on scientific evidence? I hope I read that right.
Like scientific theories? Absolutely. Because if you don't go into an investigation with a little bit of skepticism, then I think you're not approaching it from a really whole perspective. And so I think the best thing that you can do is go in. It's more of a skeptic. I'm a skeptic believer. And in that, I want to see some type of evidence substantiated. I want to be able to listen back to the audio and hear something. I want a picture of something. I want a video of something. I want that tangible evidence, not just to go in and feel those, goosebumps and have the experience. It's all about substantiating the claims.
Okay. That is all the questions that I have right now. And Gateway Paranormal also joined in.
Awesome. Are we clear on Facebook as well, or is there any other questions?
I don't have any more questions. Joe jumped over here. I have Tony Santori and Melissa Rowland just jumped on.
All right, awesome. Thanks for joining us. All right, Annie. You said a couple interesting things. The last thing you mentioned was you like to validate. You like to see something tangible when you go investigate. So let's kind of address that. Do you realize that the mind can play tricks, and sometimes we perceive things and misidentify? You want to know if it's objectively true. There's a lot of people out there that care quite a bit about inner truths, religion, stuff like that. But talk to me more. Why is it that you need that tangible? Why is it that you need to get that physical evidence?
Because anybody can go into a place and have a feeling or have an instinct. But I think it's important because, and this also comes a lot from my background, I guess, because I'm a little bit of a black sheep in the area that I live in. My family doesn't really understand the whole paranormal thing. They don't understand why I spend so much time and effort doing what I do. And it's not about proving to them, I guess, that it exists, but it's about making them think that it's possible, making them understand that it's possible. And so when we talk about scientific explanation behind paranormal activity, if you look at it from a scientific standpoint, energy is never created or destroyed. It just changes form. And so the human body is nothing but a big ball of energy, neurons firing constantly. The human brain is capable of so much more than we can ever realize. And so when our body ceases to exist here, where does that energy go? It can't just disappear. It has to change form into something else. And so if we can substantiate that some of that energy is left behind and somehow interacts with us on some type of level or basis, that's what I want to be able to prove.
Yes, that would be great. I like what you said, that Michelle Belanger, she doesn't like the word psychic. I try to use the word metaphysicist. It seems like it covers pretty much everything, and it doesn't hang that expectation. Usually people tie to psychics like, oh, they should know the lottery numbers and all that bull crap.
Right.
But that's just, they don't understand how it works. But back to the consciousness existing, beyond death, I just believe that we leave things behind. We imprint. In houses, correct, in the dirt, in the stone, everywhere, into the physical attributes around us. We do that in our brain, in our neurons. We imprint the microtubules in our brain. It, codes it with the memory. And, that's why Alzheimer's patients and other people that have memory loss, you see those microtubules, wither away and get destroyed. So they lose that imprint and that coding. I think if we're going to look, we need to find that thing that we imprint with. And I genuinely believe that there is a field of energy that vibrates that we do not know about. In the quantum field theory, there's a field that's missing that we haven't detected with colliders and all the studies we have. Maybe we need more energy is what they say. But I think there's a lot more to discover out there. And I think we may discover it, but it may be far out there.
We may not. We may never see that in our lifetime. But I think there are different planes of energy. And we only tap into certain ones as humans. I think most people have the ability to tap into some other type of energy. It all depends on whether you want to or not, whether you are open enough to to allow yourself to do that. And I think that's what a lot of, when you're talking about the metaphysical, doing meditation and, these relaxation exercises, I think people will learn that their minds are capable of far more than what they would ever imagine.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It gets complex. It kind of gets outside your range of what we're able to understand and articulate and convey to people. But that doesn't stop us from trying. I know my mother, which if you watch the Monroe House or any of the other stuff my mother's in, she's like this super gifted, super psychic lady. I don't know what to call her. She probably doesn't like that label, but she's been doing that to me for years, and I can't keep on saying, well, she's crazy. She's already validated so many things. And, Justin over here, he's trying to be the science guy because he doesn't want to be looked at like he's crazy. He doesn't want to be judged by those people. And, there has to come to a point. When my father passed away in 2011 at age 54, his heart exploded. I wasn't ready for that. So I started to see the importance of spirituality. I started to see the importance of knowing about your own mortality, what it means, what space do you want your head and your heart to be in when you take your last breath. That means something to me, and I believe it means something to most people, and that's why the brain is wired to believe in a higher power, to believe in a spiritual, thing. So
I agree with that. It's a level of comfort for all of us to think that this is not it. This is not the be all end all of our existence, and that somehow we live on in some other form, whether you want to call that, in spirituality, a heaven, or, whatever they want to call that, or if you live on in some other type of energy around the people that you love. Everyone, it is a comfort because everyone wants to believe that they will be able to live on somehow.
Right. And the concept of heaven and hell is it's not so much something that I believe in biblically, but if you take a second to imagine, if the brain is knowing that it's gonna die, you're gonna start analyzing your own regret and self-evaluating. If you leave something out there on the table that you didn't finish up or something that you regret, that could be your own personal hell in that moment, and you can imprint your environment and everything that you've done with that. And that can be something that can manifest because it just didn't get finished. It didn't get done. Mm-hmm. So that could be what causes the hauntings. What we think the spirit and the soul is may not be what it is. It may not be something like me and you talking to each other. It may be some physical essence, metaphysical essence rather, and we're picking up on it. So it's fascinating to speculate about those things, but as I delve deeper down into the rabbit hole, I'm starting to think that that's more and more the case. It's just aspects of us we leave behind. It's not something, that we carry around in like we're a taxi cab with this little, thinking, remembering thing. I mean, because it doesn't make sense. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
I think it's interesting when you go into, and I think I learned this more doing a lot of residential hauntings, when I first started out. You go into these places where people think that they just have this absolutely terrible demonic presence. And when you find out that the person, who lived in this place before, was just an absolute terrible person in life, my theory is it's not so, I'm not saying that demons and things like that don't exist, but if you were a jerk in life and that's the energy that you leave behind in that space, why would it be any different once you're gone? If you're a jerk in life, you're going to be a jerk in death, because that's the energy that you leave behind, and vice versa. If you had a happy life and, were peaceful, I think that's the energy that you leave behind. And I think that correlates with what you're talking about there.
Right. And if you actually read about what demons are, they're fallen angels. They weren't these ugly, hideous things that did awful, destructive things. They just didn't want to serve humans, and they didn't want to listen to God to tell them that. So they followed Lucifer, and then they fell and got banished to the earth. You're thinking about people are just trying to turn people away from God. You're not thinking about, Annalise Mitchell, the case of Annalise Mitchell, or anything like that. Those things are just created out of fear and out of the the influence for paranormal pulp culture, horror movies, and a lot of dogmatic religions, I'm sorry to say, put that out there, and people are freaked out.
Sometimes I think it is, it's to frighten people. It's to frighten them to not do certain things. A lot of, I hate to say, but I think a lot of religions were created to control the population. And so, it's put, like they said, put the fear of God in people. That's exactly what they were trying to do. And so I think that also falls in line with what you're talking about there. Yeah,
it makes sense. Let's go back to the chat, make sure that we're not ignoring anybody's questions for you. What's going on? Got any questions?
No. Brendan Shea said, I think we just go back to the natural vibration of the universe.
Sounds like a plan to me, buddy. Do you, by saying that, you mean just smoke weed every day? I was just curious. That's what it sounded like. I'm sorry, that's Snoop Dogg.
Take that however you want it.
That was just Snoop. Sorry.
Darn. Okay. Any questions on YouTube? There usually is.
No, actually, they're mostly talking amongst themselves.
Okay. Anybody new popping in yet?
No, not that no. Nope, not that I'm seeing.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can pull some questions out of there. All right, Annie. Let me ask you some stuff. Okay. I know that you mentioned science, and you want to see proof. You want to hear the recordings and see the photos and so on. What is it? I know you kind of took me down the metaphysical road on your show. What is it about the metaphysical that you try to explore and try to gain experience in, especially now since you're Resident Undead? What's your role when it comes to the metaphysical?
I think it's more walking into a place and just gathering the energy that's around you and seeing how that plays into your ability to investigate that location. Because you can go into a location cold and, set out your equipment and see what happens. But if you go in and really attempt to connect with a location before you set that energy down and before you get started, sit down and feel the vibration of the place around you and see if you don't get a better investigation than if you just went in and sat down a shit ton of equipment and said, "Here you go, ghost, talk to me."
Right. You mentioned connecting. Why do you think that a lot of people want to connect and need to connect, and not only to, people and friendships and even, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, and wives? What is it about these haunted locations, these stories that we want to connect with? Why do we do that, in your opinion?
I think it's the mystery behind it. Everybody loves a good mystery. All of us out there, I grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries. My favorite thing in the world was to hear Robert Stack come on the TV and see him come creeping out of the shadows in that big ass trench coat and hear him talk about these mysteries. People want to form their own opinions about something. And so I think that's a lot of it is connecting to a mystery about a place and trying to figure that out. I think it calls to all of us on some level.
Right. One of the places that it did resonate with me as far as connecting was Waverly Hills Sanitarium. It's sad. It's really bad. And when you go to those locations, of course, people are going almost every day trying to get ghosts to talk to them and do things. So I'm like, okay, why would they want to talk to me? Why would they want to do anything with me? I'm nobody, right? So I'm trying to find a way to connect. And when I'm trying to, look at the history, see what the procedures are like, see what their lives were like before going, you find yourself connecting before you even get there. You find your empathic abilities starting to weave in with the energies that are there before you get there. And by the time you get there and the stars align, you do connect. And I think that will give you a better opportunity to have experiences that you're seeking and looking for. But I believe everybody is trying to connect in different ways. Some, like you mentioned, and some maybe on a more personal, emotional level too. Of course, it's intriguing and cool to go into a creepy location, but some people, they see this, abandoned, dilapidated place, or they see this hospital, they start thinking about all the poor people or whatever. I just think that the human element of why people want to connect with locations and with stories and with mysteries is part of what might cause the experience that we know as hauntings and ghosts. What do you think about that?
And it could be, everybody wants to connect to somebody else on some level. Nobody wants to be alone. None of us want to think that these places like Waverly Hills, that such terrible things, people were so sick. And you think about the energy that's put out from that. People want to connect on that level. And I think the majority of the people that I've met and worked with in the paranormal field really all genuinely care about people. Now, there are a few that don't. There are a few that are real turds out there, and, we won't go there. But the majority of the people that I've met are in it for the connection factor, because they want to feel that type of energy from the living and from the dead.
Right. I agree totally. So I seen some questions on Facebook. If there's some YouTube ones, we'll get to those too. But if you want to go ahead and ask those.
Okay. Okay, hold on. How do you think people can become possessed? Is the first question.
I don't know. Possession and exorcisms are something that I have never been a part of. More because of the factor that I don't care to know. I think it goes back to religion and spirituality. When you're talking about possession, you're talking about something that's non-human. And that's something that I really don't think I know anything about. I was asked one time in my paranormal career to be a part of an exorcism. And they told me that they wanted me there because they knew that the person that they were trying to perform this exorcism on was not going to be happy. And they thought that my positive energy being there would be a calming factor. And I refused. I wanted no part of it. And the people were, I think, a little pissed off and taken aback. And I just said, listen, that's not what I'm in it to find out. I'm not in it to find out if demons walk amongst us. That's not it. That's not it for me. And so, if other people want to take part in exorcisms, that is perfectly fine and their own prerogative. But as far as I'm concerned, I hate to say that I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I really don't.
Okay. Haunted Theories asked, how do you gather energy and vibrations at a location?
I think the best way to do it is just to go in kind of cold, not knowing a lot of history or any history about the locations, and feel the energy going on around you. You can meditate prior to, you can open up your mind and your senses. Be careful if you do it, because I've been in locations before when, I was a little too open and things happen. But I really think that just by putting out all of the other factors, all the other stimulus around you, And focusing on the here and the now and opening up your mind and using all of your senses is the best way to collect the energy of a location around you.
Okay. And then Tony Santori asked, what did Annie pick up on at the Inspiration House?
Hi, Uncle Tony. Tony is a friend of ours. The Inspiration House is a place that Michelle Belanger purchased sometime in the last year or so, that they really want to focus on kind of making a retreat that Michelle can do the psychic teachings and that sort of thing. I picked up on... there was a man there that was not super happy. And it came to me, Becca and I were out in, I think Michelle called it the carriage house. It's kind of a little separate living area. A man out there who was kind of grumpy and gruff and just didn't want to be bothered. He was literally working at his workbench, and as we were kind of doing what we were doing, just kind of turning around and just giving us the eye like, we don't know why you're here. That was my biggest impression at the Inspiration House.
Okay. And then Christy Brown wants to know, do you do anything to protect yourself?
I do. I'm a big fan of sage and just really cleansing your energy and your space once you're finished. Sage, salt, incense, and again, when you leave an area, to really kind of, I hate to say close off your senses, but to have the ability to turn it off and say, okay, your energy stays here, my energy goes with me, we have to part ways at this point, and kind of shut it off from there.
Okay. And then Bill Davis wants to know, what things happened when you opened yourself up too much?
I think the most profound experience that I had is coming up in the next episode of Resident Undead, so I don't want to say too much about it, but we were at a location where something connected with me that made me very physically ill. And I really felt like it was someone trying to show me something. And I opened myself up. I let my guard down because the energy that was connecting seemed very, it seemed harmless. And I don't think it was trying to harm me. I think I was just feeling the reaction of how that energy perished at that location.
And I think that's all the questions I have for right now.
All right, real quick before we go to YouTube, how did it make you feel?
When it made me physically ill?
Mm-hmm. Like, kind of elaborate.
I felt like I might have been experiencing the way that this person died. And so it came on first as an emotion, just the sadness. And then it came on as physical illness. I ended up leaving the building, and once I left, it dispersed. But I think I was just way too engulfed in the energy of the location at that point.
Yeah. What reminded me of something reminded me of what happened to me a year or two back. I can't remember now, but there was a residential case I was working on, and an old lady had passed in the home, and the daughter and the husband was still there, and they believed that some of the paranormal phenomena that was happening is because of her. And I was standing right next to the chair where she died in, and I was actually picking up, magnetic fields that I couldn't explain on the meters. And we were talking about her, and I started feeling something. And one of the other sensitives told me to sit down in the chair. And once I did, I started getting visions. That's when I started really connecting hard. And I think that when you start to detect those energies that are really disturbing things in the environment, it's it's really strong, it can make us feel sick. And that's what happened to me. When I got home, I felt ill. I felt like I just wanted to die, pretty much. It drained me. It was not good. So I got cleansed. I had, I've been smudged, and after that was fine. But, that's interesting when that happens. You kind of want to know why, those particular things happen, because the energy seems like it's not consistent. It can be up high, it can be down low. What's your take on that?
When I started doing investigating with the first team that I was with, we would go on these investigations and, you're there the majority of the night. And at this point, I'm still really diving into how it is that I connect with these locations and the energies, what I'm connecting with, and how deep can I get into this. And so for the first couple of years, when I would investigate and come home the next day, number one, I physically ran a fever. Number two, I would be so physically drained that I would just sleep the day away. But the factor of me running a fever, I literally, my skin would hurt. I would run a fever. I would flush. I would be exhausted. Was it just the exhaustion of the energy there pulling out my energy? Or was it something actually having a physical effect on me? I don't know. Since I started learning how to protect myself more and shutting some of it off, for the past year or so, that's not happened. I've not had any of those experiences investigating with Resident Undead, but I'm also with some very seasoned investigators there who have been able to, if anything happens to any of us, we can kind of reel each other back in. And when I had the experience that you'll see in the next episode, Becca Kirschbaum actually, I think, physically pulled something out of me at the end of it when we left the building. And so it's odd how the energy affects people in different ways.
It's all weird.
It's all very strange.
Yes. Anything on YouTube?
Yes. Roland Cutt said he heard about the remote viewing, that these people claim that they know, they knew where bin Laden was, but the United States Army didn't go ahead with them. Why is it that professionals such as law enforcement not use these people?
I think it's because there's really very little way to prove any credibility to it. I wouldn't want somebody to call on me and say, I need you to go look for something for me. That's not something that I don't think I would ever be comfortable doing. And I had a couple of strange experiences in relation to a couple of missing persons cases. Whether it's dreams, remote viewing, whatever you want to call that. There's just no way to physically substantiate it at that time unless you say, oh my God, I see him here right now, and they go immediately, and that happens to be where the person is. Not saying it couldn't happen, but I just don't think that law enforcement is ready to step out and say, let's try to substantiate these claims at this point.
I want to add real quick to that. Law enforcement officers, when they see people, usually the remote viewers or psychics are vague. They'll see water, forest, trees, a fence, building. But let's just say they were highly accurate. That would give them reasons to suspect or be suspicious of the psychic. Where they got the information, why didn't they know that? Are they accessory? And the cross-examination would attack these people, be like, okay, how did she know this? She has to have something to do with it. So I think that disruption, it's in itself, would be problematic too.
I think it would be very difficult, and it's not a position that I would ever want to be in because, like you said, it almost makes that person look suspect, whether they are or not. It could be totally, people who have this superpower of their mind could absolutely be capable of doing that. But I think those cases are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Craig Wanted to know, what are your thoughts about out-of-body experiences?
I have never had one. I have been contacted by people who have told me they have had out-of-body experiences, astral projection specifically. I think it's just another level of consciousness. A lot of people claim that this happens, when they're sleeping, and that, studying the brain when you are in a sleep pattern, your brain is in all different directions and there are lots of different levels. So for someone to have an out-of-body experience, maybe their mind and their body is just relaxed enough that they're experiencing another one of those different levels of energy. That would be my thought. That's my theory behind that.
Okay. Scotty asks, can opening up one's chakras be an issue for spiritual safety?
I would think so. I think anytime you open yourself up to anything, then you run the risk of opening yourself to the good and the bad, the positive and the negative. And so that's where you really have to learn your boundaries and say, if this is something that I'm not comfortable dealing with, step back, because you could bring far more on yourself than you expected if you're not careful with it.
Sure, absolutely. That's it for YouTube right now.
All right. I did see Matt suggest that detectives have used psychics and mediums for cold cases before, and I do realize that, to my knowledge, none has been substantiated as, the sole reason why they solve cases. I know a few people in the field that do advertise that they work with law enforcement and go in cold cases, but I don't know if they don't, blow the lid open and say, yeah, this psychic or whatever. I don't know if they could do that, but I could see some giving information and then just keeping it quiet, probably for the better.
I agree with that. I think it would be very difficult. It's not a position that I would ever want to be in at all.
Have you covered this on Serial Spirits yet?
Psychics and law enforcement?
Mm-hmm.
We have not. Wait, let me go back. Not necessarily. We covered the case of Herb Baumeister. Herb Baumeister was the man that they called the I-70 Strangler. There's a place in Indiana called Fox Hollow Farms, and I think it first got its first paranormal fame when the guys from Ghost Adventures were there and did an investigation. We actually talked with a man who did he shot a documentary there, and this guy was his name's Dan Hall, great guy. He was just there solely to shoot a documentary. But he had all different kinds of people come in and do different levels of investigating. He had one of the lead detectives on the case that he talked with. He had paranormal investigators. He had a demonologist. He had a Native American shaman come in there. And so they all kind of interacted on that level, but it wasn't the psychics actually directly reporting any of this evidence to the police. It's kind of a moot point because the case, I think, is technically closed. They fully believe that Herb Baumeister was the I-70 Strangler and he committed suicide. So they never went any further with it than that.
Right. Well, maybe that's something you can consider covering, maybe a specific case, or just generalize that as a topic. I just thought it would fit the format a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Serial Spirits is kind of our baby project. It's been everything from paranormal, serial killers. We covered cryptids a little bit with the Mothman, and we're really branching more into unsolved crimes. You'll see that in our next 2 episodes. And it's interesting.
Where can they listen to Serial Spirits?
Serial Spirits is going to start as of January 23rd. It will premiere live every other Wednesday on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Paranormal UK Radio Network. paranormal, paukradio.com. The next day, it will be uploaded to our Spreaker account. And then you can also follow Paranormal UK Radio on iTunes, TuneIn, Podbean. It's on all the other major apps.
Awesome. We're reaching the end. Go ahead and plug everything else. I know I have some links in the description, but I want to make sure that you cover everything so everybody can find out everything you're doing, how to follow.
So Resident Undead is youtube.com/Adam Kimmel. You can watch all the past episodes and all the episodes coming up. There will be another one coming up, I think, in the next month or so. That's going to be awesome. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at RUWeebs. Something kind of exciting that I haven't officially announced yet. For the last year, I have been airing a live radio show, RUWeebs Radio, on Paramania Radio. Last night was my last episode of RUWeebs Radio with Paramania. I have been offered something that I'm really excited about. And so if you guys send me a friend request on Facebook, follow me on there, because Sunday night I have a big announcement coming up about a change to RUWeebs Live and what's going to be my new home.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Annie, you have been awesome. Thank you very much for coming on the show and talking paranormal with us. I know an hour's not very long. We could sit here for hours and
absolutely
and talk about all the weird, nutty things that we call the paranormal. And please, everybody, check out all the links and in the description and just follow along with what Resident Undead Annie Weible's doing. They're doing good things. So hopefully you guys will reach out and connect that way. So Annie, I'm going to wrap this up. If you want to hang out on the video call, you can. If you got a split, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to wrap it up. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on Necromancer Live Show tonight. Annie's super awesome. Before I got to do this, before we close this out, we have to show some photos. Okay. What you're looking at is the first time me and Annie met in person. Okay. And it was unexpected. Here, this picture is needs to be a little resized here. Okay. I just want you to look this is what people look like when they can't see anything. Their eyes are wide open and they just got, goofy looks on their face. And I just thought this was funny because, they're wandering around in the dark and here's this weirdo with the camera and they're just looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you looking at like that? So it was just awesome meeting her down there. And hopefully I get sent the rest of the video footage so we can take a closer look at that. And maybe we can see Brendan and Annie talking to me on video down there. But I just thought I'd share that before we left. But please follow the links in the description. You guys have been great. Thanks for watching. We're going to look at some links here. Okay. Not only the links that Annie has in the video descriptions, we're going to take a look at interfacedeath.net. If you like what you see, if you like the shows, you're going to like the paranormal research too. So that's the hub of everything we do. Check that link out in the description. Patreon.com/support Interface Death is a way you can support us financially. We'll talk about that more in depth in a moment. You can follow Necromancer Live Show on Facebook and Interface Death on Twitter and Instagram as well. Patreon is the way we keep this stuff going. Without our Patreon support, we could not keep doing this and keep growing and making it better and better. People like Clay Borman, R.J. Murphy, Casey Schreiner, Jessica Bias, Scotty Fox, Sherry Brett, Bill Davis, Joe Vitelli, Heather Elliott, and General Rogue make this possible. If you like what you see, you want to see it stay and keep on getting better, check out patreon.com/support Interface Death. There are rewards and exclusive content for those who support us on Patreon. So thank you very much to those folks as well. I'm going to leave it there. You guys have been great. Supernatural Symposium on Live Paranormal and the Interface Death YouTube channel Monday at 8 p.m. Soapbox again on Tuesday, and another Necromancer live show, we're going to have Vanessa Hogel from Edge of the Rabbit Hole with Mike Ricksecker, and she's got some books that we're going to promote and talk about. So stick around for some video promotions if you're new to the show and want to watch them again. I'll see you guys next time. Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good.
What was that?
I don't know. I feel like I can't breathe in this room.
Generally, Justin, when you guys investigate, do you just take long pauses, wait to see if you hear things, and observe everything that's going on?
It depends on the location and our experience with the location. So in this case, at Waverly Hills, since we've been here before, we've heard a lot of stories, done a lot of research, and investigated. We typically like to listen a lot because we hear the coughing, we heard it last time, so we can hear it again.
this room over here. What the fuck, dude?
Whoa.
That's weird.
You didn't do anything, right?
No, it just turned.
Justin too close?
No.
He opened that door and it went off.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you just run out of there?